This session, let's discuss about autoencoders. So what autoencoders is like, we have like so many use cases regarding autoencoders. So let's also discuss those along with what actually autoencoders is. So what autoencoder does is, like in the name itself, there is it's there like encode, right? So what it does is it tries to encode information within a certain dimension. Okay, so it means like in case if you have an input, okay, so that input, it tries to do encoding to some other representation. Okay, so usually encoding, we usually do it in a smaller dimension, right? So let's say you have a higher dimension, and we try to convert this higher dimension into a lower dimension. Sorry, the way I wrote it is wrong. So something like this, you have some networks, okay? So three and then two maybe. So here from five, we are converting. This is how like usually we write our neural network, right? So what we are doing is, if you take this one, this as a features, okay, so what it does is, like your input will get actually these will extract features out of your input, right? And it will represent your input in a different dimension, like means like here it is 5, and now it is getting represented in a 3 dimension. So that is what is indirectly encoding. So here it is actually extracting some features out of it, right? So and those features are a kind of encoding in a smaller dimension, in smaller dimension. So usually in case if we want to do encoding, like what we usually previously what we have done is, we have input, we what we do, we also have one output, and depending on that we used to like train the model, right? After training the model, we can take this as features for it. Okay, these are the features for your model. But actually, if you in case if you are encoding, or like if you in case of auto encoders, when we do you use it, so you don't have any kind of labels. Okay, so you just have inputs. So you just have your let's say images, or maybe any other maybe time series graph or something. So you just have inputs to it, and means like input data, and you don't have any kind of output, means like labeled that this is dog, this is car, or this is a fault, this is abnormal, something like, nothing is that. You just have data. So with that, in case if you want to represent your data in a like lower dimension, what you can also do is, you can use an autoencoder. So what autoencoder is, so let's say, let me draw this, okay? So if you think about only this part, okay, till here, so this is encoding. So where if you give an input, so what it does is, it will try to learn represent it in a lower dimension. Okay, so here from 6 it is trying to do it in a 2 dimension. Then what we also have is a decoding. So from a lower dimension, this is inverse of encoding here. So what it tries to do is from a lower dimensional object, it tries to reconstruct the input. Okay, here finally what we need is, in case if you have an input and this is output, so output should be similar to input. So if we are able to do that, it means like let's say you gave an image of a dog, okay, of a person or dog, anything. So and it tries to represent it in a lower dimension here. From this bigger size, now it will be a smaller size. Okay, some a kind of a smaller vector. And then from this again, you want to reconstruct your image back to size like what is there earlier. So something like this. So if it is able to reconstruct, then what in the process of reconstructing, so what we do is like we have what we have done from a larger dimension, we have reduced our input data to a lower dimension, and then we are able to reconstruct from the lower dimension back to higher dimension. Okay, so what we can use this, we can also use this in dimensionality reduction, right? So in case if we have a huge dimension, initially we have discussed about PCA for doing it. Similarly, we can also do something like this, where you are representing a higher dimensional image or any other feature, maybe 100 dimensional, into something like 10 dimension or something. So you'll be able to do that. And for why, how will automatically do, like usually in case if we have a network, we randomly initialize these values, right? So we have to train a network for it to extract those features. So how we will do it is, so we seeing this image, you can get it. Maybe let me write it as block here, encoding. So this is a layer, like we call it as a bottleneck layer. Okay, bottleneck. Okay, so and then decoding. So this will be part of encoder and decoder. So I'm just writing it outside. So here you pass input and you'll be getting output. Let's call it as reconstruction. This is what is reconstructed output input, right? So what image you give it, we are trying to get the same out of it by reducing dimension ones and increasing dimension ones. Then what we do is we compare these two and calculate loss. So loss can be something like input minus this is y. Okay, so this is x, then you have y minus x. So or maybe if y, you may feel that it is a label, so let's say like x tilde. So let's say this is your reconstructed, this is output, and then this is your input. So difference between those two can be your loss, right? So it's similar to regression loss, how we use your regression loss. So this is how you can use it, right? So with this, what will happen is, so you can calculate what is a loss, and this loss, what we do, optimizing. So we will pass it to optimizer. Then the weights of these two will get updated. Maybe this as well. Okay. So these will get updated, and slowly what will happen is this network will try to learn to extract features from it, and then also means like encode your larger dimension to a shorter dimension. And again, we also also these weights will learn how to reconstruct from these weights back, sorry, this output, like which was in a lower dimension, back to a higher dimension. So this is what autoencoder will do. So once it is learned, what you can do is, in case if you want to reduce the dimension, once we are able to do this, okay, so what we'll be doing is, so remove this first, like first use case. Let me talk about a first use case. So one can be dimensionality reduction. Okay, so in that, what you'll do is, so once you train autoencoder first, autoencoder means like entire, this entire process, and then what you do is you only take encoder part till bottleneck layer. So this is your input, so this is where you have, and you only take till here. So these connections will be there, right? Anyway, so and you give input. So this, you take output from these. So what output you get from here, na? So that is your lower dimension. High dimension input, we can as a data, low dimension output. So now we can use this as your data for reduction. Like here, maybe say 100 you have a 100 dimension of data, and you are you have only 10 units here. We represented only 2 here, but let's say you have 10 dimension like this. Okay, so kind of 10 cells here, and here there are 100 cells in input. So then what we'll be able to do is, from a 100 dimension, you are able to reduce to 10 dimension. So this way we can use autoencoder. Okay, so these acts as a features to your model, and then on top of it you can like use it for anything else. So this is one thing. And one more thing can be like this. So like usually in images, they use it for image reconstruction and or image cleaning, something like this. So what actually they'll try to do is, so like this need not be just fully connected layers, like even though I draw only fully connected layers here, so it can be convolution layers as well. Okay, so usually in images we try to have like convolution layers as well, right? So it can be convolution layers. So in case of image reconstruction, what it'll try to do is, so again like this. So this is slightly different the way we do training. So one concept is same. So you have input, you get some output, and you'll be taking loss, which is like output minus input, like of all values, right? So you'll be taking again and again, so all those values, and then do a optimizer update weights. So this will continue, so every time. But what difference does it make is, what we previously, in this case, what we have given for dimensionality reduction, we have given a reconstructed input, and as like here we have taken difference between your input and output, right? So we here we expected the output should be same as input, similar that we can use it for dimensionality reduction. So now in a image reconstruction, it is something like you have a blurry image or something which you took it the image while your camera is shaking or something like that, right? So your image won't be clear, right? So what you can also do is use this autoencoder for denoising as well or reconstruction. Means like remove the noise, that blurriness and all, right? So you can remove using this autoencoder. So for that, what you'll do is, you'll train your model by giving a blurry images. So what you do is, let's call autoencoder. So here you give blurry images or noisy images. Okay, so taking this images, what you do is, you give autoencoder, and here you get an output, right? So now, previously what we have done, we have compared the output with input. That difference we have taken here. Instead of calculating output with the noisy image, we take a difference. Instead of with noisy image, we take with actual image, like proper image, non noisy image. Or maybe it's like you have a black and white photo here, uh, means like grayscale, what you call is grayscale image here, and output you expect to be a color photo. Okay, color image. So you can expect that way. So that time what you do is, what you are expecting, that you take it here. Okay, so in case of your output image, what you get from output, and minus colored image if you do, and then take this as a loss function, what you will do is, you actually make your model to train so that your grayscale image will get converted into a colored image. Means some older black and white photo if you have, and then that you pass it to this model, it will like make it as a colored photo. Okay, so similarly, if you have some similarly, when you train it for that purpose, okay, so if you do this way, it is for making colored image model. Okay, this will make it as a colored image. So in case if your loss function is like this, so loss function is, so output minus, so instead just a normal image, like previously it is blurry, now non-blurred image. So if you have some clean images, let me write clean image of the same photo. It shouldn't be like a different photo. cleaned image. So if you have a data set where you contain where X is like blurry image and Y is clean image, so if you give this as a kind of a training with the Y as an output, like for which you will be using blur, so this will make it denoising autoencoder. Okay, so this will denoise from the data. It will try to remove the noise from your data. Okay, but in case if you give a grayscale image as your data and try to like give an output, expect an output from it as a colored image, this is image like colored. I am not sure what word we use it here. So image reconstruction with color or something like this. So it will be that kind of model. So you can train either this way or this way, like that. Okay, so like depending on your use case, you can what you there is only one small basic thing, like your output, what you expect from your model. If you give it from that and try to define a loss function within that, so you'll be getting your model to work in that way, right? So the same thing will happen here as well. In case we want to reconstruct your image or maybe color your image, you can do it by having two sets, like one noisy image, and then for the same kind of image a clean image if you have. And then if you have set of like such kind of images and all, right, so you can train on top of it and then get a better classifier. It means like not classifier, better model which will do this conversion. Okay, so this is about autoencoder and where you can use. Let me also tell about like some small use case like which I have also used. Okay, so we can also use it for anomaly detection. This is also a popular use case for anomaly detection. So what actually anomaly detection is? So it try from your data points, it tries to find out an abnormal point. Okay, so it tries to find out like few abnormal points. So let me tell you, give you a small example. So it's like in case if you like in a class, okay, so students are getting like marks in range like 70, 75, 72, 74, and 80 max, like this. And there are like some guys who got like 20. There are like some guys who got like 100. Okay, so maybe this is the same person. Okay, same person, like these are marks, let us say marks of same person who were asked like in a test, like a series of tests, like they he got like some values within this range. Okay, 68, 70, like 74, like this. And in some test he got like again 72, 73, 74, something like this. So these are the list of marks like by a student in like various exams, like maybe unit test and then mid exams, semester exams, like final exams, like that. If you combine, like for one subject he got value marks like this, right? So here we can say almost he is in one range, right? And suddenly in one of the exam he got 100. So this looks a kind of abnormal value for him, right? So he never got like such a high value. So what you can do is like you can actually detect this as a kind of anomaly. You can treat it as an anomaly. Usually he's in case you ask him like ask his teacher like how many marks he might get like in the next exams. Usually you may say like maybe roughly 75 or 72, like that. Okay, but sometimes like in one test like he got 100, so which is very far from what he usually performs. Or maybe not just one test, maybe two tests, 100 and there is 99 in one more test. So these looks like abnormal. Okay, so what you see is like this will get identified in anomaly detection. Maybe your values are here, like if you take a features out of it. Okay, so your values are here and there are few values which will come far. So these will be detected as anomaly. So these are all fine, non-anomalous. Okay, so this is how it can be classified, like it, but we don't have that labeled information. This is an unsupervised learning problem, so where you won't be having the information that like is this unsupervised means is what is an anomaly point or there. So let me tell a use case on this. So one use case can be identifying abnormal like data points, like let me give that example. So taking this, let's try to use it in this kind of method in one use case. So like one of them can be a kind of fault identification. In some kind of a plant. Okay, let's take a plant where you are trying to identify fault within that. So what can it be is like something like this. So in case let's say from maybe a car as well. Okay, like you can take a car or anything, like any kind of system, you have set of sensors. So each sensor, let's only talk about a single sensor first, and then we'll extend it to multiple sensor. So okay, we can extend to multiple sensor starting itself. So you will have some kind of a time series signals, right? So similarly, sensor 2 will have maybe flat like this. So it can be various, like depends on how the sensor is, maybe like this. So you will be getting some values like this. Okay, but usually what happens is, in case if okay, if there is some problem or some fault or something, right? So what will happen is suddenly you will be getting like abnormally it will start behaving. Okay, it may be like not this way. So at least it may behave something like it will start increasing. Okay, or this as well, like maybe decreasing as well, like it need not be just increasing. So this may be like doing flat or anything, it will behave abnormally compared to like when it is non-faulty situation. So what you do is, so like to identify such kind of situation and detect that there is something wrong happening in your plant or maybe in your any system. Okay, so what you can do is you can give these sensor values: sensor 1, sensor 2, sensor 3, so on. Okay, so how many sensors you have, you take those sensors. So usually if you take a manufacturing plant or something, right? So you will be having some hundreds of sensors, maybe some 300 sensors, 400 sensor readings and all. So you can take all of them, maybe do normalize anyway like in the front, and then what you do is you use an autoencoder. Try to reconstruct the output. Okay, so you can do this, right? So and should be getting the same sensor output here. So this way you can try to reconstruct it. So using loss function as the reconstructed output minus actual output, take the summation, like this will be your loss. From this you optimize this one, and finally you get a like a model where it learns how your sensors will behave. Okay, so how your sensors will, but be cautious for training. Train on you train model only using non-anomalous data. So it means only the clean data, like where there is no fault, you'll be having that data, right? So because you'll know like some in your future, like in your past, like your plant did not get any fault, like you'll be having that data with you. So those data, you take those data and you train the model using only that non clean data, only that non-anomalous data. So after doing that, what you can also do is, once you get this training, then what your model is now ready with like which it has seen, like how your model how your what you say your sensors will behave, and it would have seen, it would have learned like how to reduce like extract features from it here, and it also like learned how to reconstruct back to same input. Okay, so and this it has learned only for non-anomalous data. So and in case if you give some different kind of data, it can't reconstruct because it has learned only maybe let me say something. So here maybe non-anomaly data is something like signal like this. Okay, sensor 1, sensor 2, which may be like this, sensor 3, which is like this. So only this behavior from sensor 1, this behavior from sensor 2, this behavior from sensor 3, this is what we have shown to the model. Okay, so only these kind of behavior it will be able to reconstruct. If suddenly if you give your input info, which is like instead of going like this, it is going like this, like this, like this, so it did not see such kind of data while training. So what will happen if you don't give the test data in same distribution as training data, then it doesn't work. Okay, so it's like just very simple thing. So in case if you trained your model on cars, okay, and you tested on cars, it will work fine. So if you trained your models on cars and you use it for bikes, okay, then it may not work because we did not train in that way. Okay, so we did not train for such kind of data. So similarly, we used a non-anomalous clean data here, and while training only non-anomalous, so it will be able to reconstruct here only the non-anomalous data. So now what we do is, in the next part we will try to give it in a real time. We will fix this system in a real time. So now what happens, you will be getting data like this, so which is previously, let's say it is clean, so no problem, and suddenly let's say some place you got a fault. Okay, treat that you got a fault here. So what happened, suddenly your behavior will start abnormal. Okay, so until here it will be able to reconstruct exactly, almost your reconstruction error will be zero. Error for like reconstruction error is like difference between x to x, this is almost zero. But when the fault starts to come, okay, at this level what happens is your reconstruction error will be high, increases. So why? Because your it won't be able to reconstruct to these values. So even though if you give like some values like this, like this, like this, it will only give something like this. So there is a difference between these two, right? So if you take a difference, there will be a huge value. So that huge value we can use it as a feature for distinguishing between anomalous and non-anomalous. So if reconstruction error is more, like greater than some threshold, we can say that anomaly. So if otherwise, non-anomalous. Okay, so something like this. So in case if you plot your data, right, so what happens is all your data will be somewhere very low reconstruction error when it is not anomaly. So but in anomaly case it will be higher. So we can do a kind of a like, but this is not like, we don't have super labels, right? So we can't have do a supervised learning classification here. So it will identify these as anomaly. We keep some kind of a threshold and you can do, or maybe use unsupervised learning approach, like maybe what we have studied, like few unsupervised learning approach, right? So we can use any of them and then distinguish between like supervised anomalous and non-anomalous data. Okay, this is one more use case which can be used. So this is one okay, very good use case. Okay, so I'll also like discuss in this session itself, like after some discussion, like we'll be also see like how we can improve this. Okay, one more thing, like what we can do is, so you have this bottleneck layer, right? So and then you have something like this, right? So maybe you take these as features, and taking this as features, what you have is very less dimension, right? So and maybe this as your features, and do a unsupervised learning. Okay, you can also do this, right? So instead of taking reconstruction error, you can also take features from bottleneck layer and use unsupervised learning algorithm or clustering, unsupervised learning or clustering algorithm to identify anomaly. Okay, so something like this one class SVM is like used like popularly. It was also proposed in one of the research papers. So what they have done is they have used autoencoder. Okay, so and then taken reconstruction error. So this reconstruction, so this is reconstructed, right? So this is x, so x minus x bar. So they have calculated this, they have used passed it to one class SVM, so which will actually do this segregation. So one class SVM is something like this, so it will identify these as anomaly. Okay, so this is one way, or instead of this or along with this, you can also give the features which were here. Okay, so these two combined, you can pass it to one class SVM and still get means like these features. Let's say there are two features. Okay, call it like x1 x2, and reconstruction error is one more feature which is x3. From these three you have like few data points, right? So these data points you try to like classify using one class SVM. So this is one more method which can be used to identify a fault in a system, or maybe anything like kind of abnormality in your system. You can identify using this. So okay, so this is about autoencoders. So let me also talk about a kind of improvement which is done to this autoencoder. Okay, so till now autoencoder is only like kind of a dense anyway. We also use a convolution layer.